presentation. Unfortunately, I do not speak in Spanish because I'm very bad in Spanish, and I do the talks in English. And it's a translational topics about liquid biopsy in hepatocellular carcinoma. The agenda of my talk will be first, I will briefly describe the genetic landscape of hepatocellular carcinoma, discuss what is liquid biopsy, the liquid biopsy in HCC, the potential limitation, and the potential translation in clinical practice. And first, what about the genetic landscape of hepatocellular carcinoma? It will be important to understand the detection of mutation in circulating tumor DNA. And first, as you know, each tumor, HCC or every solid cancer, is an accumulation of somatic genetic alteration during carcinogenesis with the Darwinian selection of cancer cells with driver mutation. And this mutation in the genome, in the DNA, occurs due to constitutional predisposition to cancer, aging, exposition to carcinogens, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and even treatment could modify the genome of the tumor. And if you looked at an HCC, each HCC is a unique combination of genetic alteration in the genome, and it is a study of the lab. We perform whole exome sequencing and describe the genetic landscape of HCC. And if you take one HCC, there are 40 to 60 somatic genetic alteration encoding sequence per tumor. And this mutation in the genome of the tumor are mostly passenger mutations that are stochastic in the genome and not functional, and 2 to 6 mutations per tumor are considered as driver mutations that are functional mutations involved in signaling pathway important to carcinogenesis, and sometimes in vitro models confirm that these mutations are driver. So when you put all together, it's not an easy slide, but I will only briefly discuss these points. When you analyze the mutation of the main driver genes, it belongs to 6 different signaling pathways. First, mutation in mechanism of telomere maintenance, mutation in cell cycle genes, you can see here P53, the classical tumor suppressor genes, activating mutation of the oxidative stress pathway, mutation in beta-catenin, which is a classical one that activates the beta-catenin pathway, mutation in epigenetic modifier genes and AKT pathway. I will mostly discuss TERT mutation in P53 in the talks because it is and beta-catenin because it is the most frequent genetic alteration in HCC, and the most important pathway in terms of driver mutation is related to mechanism of reactivation of telomerase. Telomerase produce telomere that at the end of the chromosome and help the cell to avoid death when the cell proliferates and help to escape replicative senescence of the mature hepatocyte. And when you looked at the most frequent genetic alteration in HCC, it is mutation in the promoter of telomerase, TERT promoter mutation. Around 30 to 60% of HCC have this mutation. With viral insertion, TERT amplification, and TERT translocation, and each of these mechanisms are exclusive together. So it is interesting because it is very frequent in terms of frequencies, and it could be used to detect this mutation in the blood. So to perform this analysis, we have used surgical samples, tumor biopsy, but if you want to use tumor biopsy in clinical practice, there are several limitations. There is a risk of bleeding, but it's not a very high risk. There is pain. It is time-intensive procedure. It's difficult to repeat for monitoring. It's difficult to repeat biopsy with 2 months. And it's poorly assessed tumor heterogeneity. And it's why we need additional biomarker, maybe in combination to tumor biopsy, and this biomarker, it is liquid biopsy. So what is liquid biopsy? Liquid biopsy, most of the time when you discuss about liquid biopsy, it is you take peripheral blood and you analysis with blood, but you can do also a liquid biopsy from urine, stool, ascites, chloride fluid, saliva, cerebrospinal fluid in some specific clinical situation. I will mainly discuss blood analysis, plasma analysis, for example. So I will discuss 3 types of liquid biopsy. First, circulating tumor cells, exosome, and circulating free DNA. So what is exosome? It is extracellular vesicles. It is small vesicles here that are released by the cell, tumor cell or normal cells, that come from the endosome for exosome, and from microparticles it comes directly from the membrane. And interestingly, the exosome that are secreted by the cells, tumor cells and normal cells, have receptors and also mRNA, DNA and protein inside this extracellular vesicle. So it is released, a small vesicle released by the cells. There is also circulating tumor cell. It's a mild order concept that tumor cells come from the primary tumors, intravased in the blood, and could be detected in the blood, and could also do metastasis. I will not come into the details of the technology of circulating tumor cells. There is the ability to detect the tumor cells in the blood of the patients depends of physical properties and biological properties. You can use antibody or the size of the cells or a combination of both. And it is very heterogeneous in terms of techniques according to the type of solid cancers. And finally, maybe the most recent one, it is the analysis of circulating tumor DNA. What is circulating tumor DNA? It is small pieces of DNA, 100 to 200 pair bases, that are released for normal cells and tumor cells during apoptosis or necrosis, and you can detect this small piece of DNA in the blood of the patient, in the plasma, and detect mutations that are in the tumor. You can detect this mutation in the plasma of the patient. So it is non-invasive detection of tumor genetic alteration by sequencing the DNA or using quantitative RT-PCR. So you need blood samples to analyze the plasma, because in the plasma there is the circulating free DNA. You can search for mutation, copy number alteration, gene fusion, or DNA methylation using various technology. I will not go into detail of the technology, but it is very important to know that it is not standardized. So when you looked at the paper, you could use one technology, quantitative PCR, or the targeted deep sequencing. So it is very heterogeneous in terms of techniques used to detect this DNA. So what about liquid biopsy in HCC? First, there is a lot of paper about circulating tumor cell in HCC patients. You can detect circulating tumor cell in HCC patients. It is a recent paper of the group of Ellen Reeves that analyzed the different type of circulating tumor cell in a patient with advanced HCC. And interestingly, it is very heterogeneous in terms of size. There is small tumor cells, tumor cells with a higher size, and there is different expression of biomarker in circulating tumor cells. Some tumor cells are ELCAM positive, and some tumor cells are ELCAM negative, for example. So you cannot use one biomarker to identify these cells. And interestingly, there is a variable number of circulating tumor cells per patient. And you can see here, it is 60 patients, and it varies from 1 to 1,000 circulating tumor cells per 4 ml of blood. So it is very heterogeneous in terms of type of tumor cells and quantity of tumor cells. In terms of exosome is the small microvesicle secreted by the tumors and the normal cells. Could be detected. It is preliminary data, proof of concept data that show that exosome could be detected in the blood using antibody. You can see it is a proof of concept study that show that in HCC patients, cholangiocarcinoma patients, there is a higher rate of specific exosome, probably secreted by the tumor cells compared to cirrhotic patients. But it is a proof of concept study. You can see that sensitivity and specificity is not so good. So you can detect them, but the usefulness in clinical practice is not known presently. For circulating tumor DNA, so the mutation is a small piece of DNA that are released by the cells. I will present this data. It is data from our lab. You can detect mutation in circulating tumor DNA. I show you here a normal sequence with a normal sequence. In here, it is plasma of HCC patient, and you could see a T instead of a C in 17% of the DNA in the blood. So you have the variants that are released by the tumor because we analyze the per tumor biopsy, there's the same mutation in the tumor. There is the same mutation in the plasma at a level of 70%, so you could detect the mutation directly in the plasma of the patients. So it is a proof of concept. Here you can see the analysis of 12 patients with advanced hepatocellular carcinoma, concomitant plasma analyzed. We perform targeted sequencing, and in all the patients we have mutation in TERT. This is one patient with one HCC. A mutation in TERT beta-catenin, P53 combination of TERT beta-catenin, and here it is a plasma. And you can see that in 9 among the 12 patients, we detect a mutation. In 3 patients, we didn't detect a mutation. So 9% mutation were detected, the same as in the tumor. And interestingly, there is additional mutation in P53 that are not detected in the tumor, that are detected in the plasma. It suggests maybe it is probably released by a different part of the tumor that belong to the heterogeneity of the tumor, that have a different P53 mutation in another part of the tumor. Maybe it is one of the explanations of the additional mutations that are detected in the plasma in these patients. So when you look at this, it is very powerful, but I have to analyze there is several limitations. I will discuss this limitation to highlight that it's not a magic bullet, because we need to work smart to improve this new technology. First, there is sensitivity and specificity. If you want to detect, maybe you think we are going to use circulating tumor DNA instead of tumor biopsy to sequence patients. However, it's not so easy, because the sensitivities depend of the quantity of the DNA that are present in the plasma. More DNA you have, more your ability to detect the mutation, and the probability to detect the low variant allele frequency depends on the quantity of circulating tumor DNA present. So you need to have DNA to detect the mutation. And the specificity, the problem also, when you have a very rare mutation in the blood, you didn't know if it is a true mutation and a technical artifact, and specifically when you go to 0.01% of molecule of DNA mutated in the blood. When you decrease the number of the frequency of mutation, maybe the specificity is not so good. Another technical issue, maybe it is that when you are growing old, there is a mutation that occurs in your blood cells, and at least 10% of everyone after 70 years has a detectable clonal mutation in the blood, P53, TET2, JAK2, BNAS, CDH2, I put you this mutation. So when you analyze the plasma of all people, you detect this mutation. And it's not because they are solid cancer, it's only the clonal hematopoiesis due to aging. So it could be misleading when you detect a TP53 mutation. You don't know if it is due to the primary tumor, if you didn't analyze the primary tumor, or aging. I put you here data that is questioning. It is a paper in Hepatology Communication that searched for TERT promoter mutation in the plasma, 81 cirrhotic patients, and without HCC, in 8% of the patients, you detect mutation in the TERT promoter in the blood. So you didn't know if it is false positive, undetected HCC, cirrhosis at risk of HCC development that release this mutation, or mutation from an undetected non-HCC cancer. So there is a problem of specificity or of understanding what means mutation in the blood. So to the last part, I will discuss the potential translation in clinical practice. I will give you an example of diagnosis, prognosis, and response to the treatment. So I think it's an interesting paper from China who who analyzed circulating DNA, didn't analyze mutation, but methylation markers, so methylation of the DNA in the blood, and using a combination of 10 genes and the analysis of 10 genes, they could perform HCC diagnosis better than alpha-fetoprotein, but alpha-fetoprotein is not used for the diagnosis, but okay. And with a very good accuracy. You can see the area under the curve.
So it's a lot of HCC. It's compared to normal control and not cirrhotic patient. There is a lot of bias, and it's required prospective external validation in a non-HBV patient. But it's interesting because using methylation of circulating DNA, maybe you could improve serum biomarker for the diagnosis. Maybe you could use detections. I previously say that the TERT promoter mutation, it is the most frequent genetic alteration in the tumor, in HCC. So this is a proof of concept study that try to detect TERT promoter mutation in 200 patients with HCC. And in half of the cases, they could detect the TERT promoter mutation in patients with HCC. So it is possible. However, it was not compared with the TERT promoter mutation in the tumor. We didn't know if the mutation were present in the tumor in this series. So it is very preliminary, and we need more data to understand if liquid biopsy could be used for the diagnosis of the mutation in the tumor. I give you an example of a phase 2 study that used plasma and circulating tumor DNA to identify patients in HCC with KRAS mutation, and to treat this patient with KRAS mutation in the blood with rifampicin. They screened more than 1,000 patients to identify around 4% of KRAS mutation, and they treat this patient with rifampicin. However, I think it's not a very well designed study, because first, KRAS mutation, it is very rare in HCC. When you analyze the tumor, it is less than 1%. And in this study, they didn't analyze the tumors to search for the KRAS mutation, so we didn't know if this mutation comes from HCC. And also, the rifampicin is not a good drug to target KRAS mutation. So, very preliminary data. And finally, it is, I think, a little bit hype from the Johns Hopkins Hospital that have been released in Science, but maybe it's interesting. They design a diagnosis tool for all the cancer, and to search for mutation on circulating tumor DNA in 7 genes combined with protein biomarker, such as alpha-fetoprotein CA19, and you can see that all patients with liver cancer are detected using this combination of biomarker. However, it is finally a little proportion of HCC patients, less than 40, and mostly in intermediate and advanced stages. So I think we have to be careful and don't believe the hype before validation. For exosome, there is very few data. It is an interesting study of Banales in Spain that show that the analysis of exosomes, the small particle released by the tumors, could be useful when you analyze the protein inside the exosome. It's for the diagnosis of cholangiocarcinoma, and you can see here that the sensitivity and specificity is better than other marker and better than CA19. So it's a proof of concept. I think it needs more data before any conclusion, but it's interesting to know that analysis of exosome could be useful for the diagnosis. For prognosis, very few data also, but maybe interesting one. More you have circulating DNA, tumor DNA in the blood, more you died. More you have a TERT promoter mutation in the blood, more you died, and more you recur. Because it is related to tumor burden that release a high amount of circulating free DNA. So it is 2 studies that showed that circulating tumor DNA could be useful to predict prognosis, but it was not analyzed against classical clinical and pathological features. So for circulating tumor cells, there is a lot of paper about that, very heterogeneous in terms of technique. I put the same of Helen Reeves that show that more circulating tumor cell you have, more you died, and it was independent of classical clinical feature in multivariate analysis, so maybe it could be useful, but it is a small number of patients, and as for circulating tumor DNA, you can see that is clearly related to tumor size. More your HCC is big, more you have tumor cell in the blood. So you have to compete to tumor size if you want to assess prognosis. And finally, the two or last three slides. What about response to treatment? There is no data in HCC, no good data in HCC, I think. So I put the example of colorectal cancer because it is more advanced in terms of clinical translation. You know that KRAS mutation in colorectal cancer is predictive of non-response to anti-EGFR antibody. And here you can see that it's a French study that uses analysis of circulating DNA to identify patients with KRAS mutation, and the sensitivity and specificity is very high, around 96%. So I think it is probably an adequate, good surrogate marker of KRAS mutation in tumor tissue. You search for the mutation KRAS in the blood, and you didn't need to search for KRAS mutation in the tumor tissue to select patients that receive anti-EGFR antibody. So I think maybe if this it will be used in clinical practice very soon, at least in France. And interestingly, it's an interesting concept that you could monitor a patient under treatment using a circulating tumor DNA. It is anti-EGFR antibody, cetuximab, with a tumor response. And after tumor progression under cetuximab, and you can see that at the beginning there is no KRAS mutation in the blood, and then before the progression, the rate of KRAS mutation increased in the blood in this patient because it's a secondary KRAS mutation that explains the resistance to treatment, and you could identify this mutation before the progression seen by imaging. And interestingly, you can see here it is not one mutation that arises in the blood. No KRAS mutation at the beginning of cetuximab anti-EGFR antibody treatment. After, you have a lot of mutation when the patient progresses who arise, and especially KRAS mutation that are classically associated with resistance. So you could monitor and understand the resistance of targeted therapy. And finally, it is a very dynamic process. I will give you an example from the group of Bardelli, who give anti-EGFR antibody, apparition of KRAS mutation under cetuximab. After they stop cetuximab, the KRAS mutation in the blood disappears because it was probably secondary to the operation of treatment that this mutation appeared. And the risk challenge after the disappearance of this mutation, the patient by anti-EGFR antibody, and very challenge. And when you very challenge, the KRAS mutation arises again. So you can monitor the treatment using the detection of KRAS antibody, and there is clinical trial in France that are undergoing to re-challenge patients progressor to anti-EGFR antibody using circulating tumor DNA. So to conclude, currently studiable liquid biopsy are proof of concept reports. Circulating tumor DNA is, in my mind, probably more easy to use in clinical practice. There is technical issues that should be solved, specificity, sensitivity. There is a lot of area of translation that could be interesting. Used to avoid tumor biopsy, I don't think it will be completely the case. Capture tumor heterogeneity, help for diagnosis, prognosis, and maybe identification of biomarker response to target therapy, and to monitor patients longitudinally. And but we need prospective assessments in a rigorous manner in each clinical situation to understand if this biomarker will be useful or not. And I will thank all the members of the Jean Verdier Hospital and INSERM where I work, and thank you for your attention.